The morning sky burned red over Seoul. 3 months had passed since the alien ships came down like falling stars, but Kim Tae-ho still remembered the sound they made, a deep humming that made his bones shake, a sound that meant the end of everything, he knew. Tae-ho pulled his work jacket tighter as he walked to the labor camp. The aliens called themselves the Valtari. They stood 3 meters tall with hard shells covering their bodies like giant bugs, 4 arms each, and eyes that glowed yellow in the dark. They had taken Earth in less than a week. The camp gates opened, with a metal screech. Tae-ho joined the line of humans waiting for work orders. Around him, people kept their heads down. No one talked much anymore. The Valtari did not like noise from their workers. "You human," a guard said in broken Korean. The alien pointed one of his 4 arms at Tae-ho. "Carry equipment to Sector 7. Tae-ho nodded and picked up the heavy metal box. Once he had been a Marine drill instructor. He had trained young men and women to fight for their country. Now he carried alien tools like a pack animal. As he walked through the camp, Tae-ho saw other humans doing the same work. Old men who used to be teachers, women who used to be doctors, children who should have been in school, all of them broken by the Valtari conquest. The aliens had been smart about taking over Earth. First, they destroyed all the military bases with their plasma weapons. Guns and tanks melted like ice in summer heat. Then they made their announcement. All human weapons must be given up. Anyone caught with a gun would die in front of everyone else. People had no choice. They brought their hunting rifles, their police guns, their military weapons to collection points. The Valtari burned them all. Mountains of metal turned to ash and smoke. "Humans are weak without their little metal sticks," the Valtari commander had said on television. His name was Thex 9 and his voice sounded like grinding stone. "Now you will learn to serve your betters." Tae-ho reached Sector 7 and put down the equipment box. A Valtari worker took it without looking at him. To the aliens, humans were just things that moved boxes and cleaned floors. But Tae-ho was watching, always watching. He saw how the Valtari moved in their hard shell armor, how they turned their heads when they heard sounds, where they looked and where they did not look. Old habits from his Marine days. A good soldier always studied the enemy. The Valtari were strong and fast. Their plasma weapons could cut through steel. Their energy shields stopped bullets like they were raindrops. But they had weak spots too. Tae-ho could see the joints where their armor bent, places where the shell was thinner, so they could move their arms and legs. After work, Tae-ho walked home through the empty streets. Most of Seoul lay in ruins from the first attack. Broken buildings reached up like broken teeth. The aliens had left some neighborhoods standing for the human workers to live in. He stopped at a small food shop. The old woman behind the counter, Mrs. Park, gave him a bag of rice and some dried fish. Payment came from their work credits, a system the Valtari used to control everything humans needed to live. "Any news?" Tae-ho asked quietly. Mrs. Park shook her head. "They caught another group trying to hide weapons in the South District. Made examples of them in the square." Tae-ho felt his hands make fists, but he forced them to relax. Getting angry would not help. Getting smart would. That night, in his small apartment, Tae-ho sat on the floor and thought. The Valtari believed they had won because they took away human weapons. But weapons were just tools. The real weapon was the person holding them. He looked at his hands. These hands had taught thousands of young Marines how to fight, how to use their bodies as weapons when they had nothing else. The aliens had taken away guns and bombs, but they could not take away what every human carried with them. A knock at his door made him freeze. Visitors were dangerous these days. The Valtari had humans watching other humans, reporting anyone who seemed like trouble. "Who is it?" he called. "A friend," came the answer. A woman's voice speaking in a way that made him think of soldiers. Tae-ho opened the door carefully. A young woman stood there, maybe 30 years old. She had short black hair and scars on her hands. Her eyes reminded him of his best fighters from the old days. Hard, but not broken. "My name is Lee Dobbin," she said. "I think we should talk." Tae-ho let her in and closed the door. Dobbin walked to his window and looked out at the empty street before she spoke again. I know who you are, Kim Tae-ho, former Marine instructor. The Valtari think you are just another broken human carrying their boxes. They are wrong. What do you want? Tae-ho asked. To show you something, Dobbin said. She pulled up her sleeve. On her arm was a small tattoo of a fist. There are others like us, people who remember how to fight. Tae-ho studied her face. Fighting the Valtari is suicide. They have plasma weapons and energy shields. We have nothing. Dobbin smiled for the first time. That is what they think, but they made a mistake when they took our guns. What mistake? They forgot that humans have been fighting for thousands of years before guns were invented. They forgot about the oldest weapons we have. Dobbin held up her hands. These. Tae-ho felt something stir in his chest, something he had not felt since the aliens came. Hope. You want to fight them hand to hand? They are 3 meters tall and covered in armor. Yes, Dobbin said. But they have joints. They have weak spots. And they have never faced an enemy that fights the way humans can fight when they have nothing left to lose. She moved to a small table and sat down. There is a group of us meeting tomorrow night. Old soldiers, martial arts teachers, anyone who knows how to use their body as a weapon. We are learning how to hurt them. And then what? Even if we kill, some Valtari soldiers more will come. Maybe, Dobbin said. But maybe not. The Valtari Empire has conquered many worlds, but no world has ever fought back after giving up their weapons. If we show them that humans can still be dangerous, it might change everything. Tae-ho walked to his window and looked out at the ruined city. Somewhere out there, Valtari soldiers were laughing about how easy it had been to break humanity, how weak humans were without their guns. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Where do we meet? Tae-ho asked. Dobbin stood up and moved toward the door. Subway station line 3, the old maintenance tunnels, midnight. After she left, Tae-ho sat in his dark apartment and looked at his hands again. Tomorrow night, he would start teaching humans how to fight again, not with guns or bombs, but with fists and feet, and the kind of anger that only came from seeing your world destroyed. The Valtari had outlawed human weapons, but they had forgotten that humans themselves were weapons. Soon they would remember, and when they did, they would wish they had never come to Earth. The old subway tunnels under Seoul smelled like rust and forgotten dreams. Tae-ho climbed down the broken stairs, using his phone's small light to see. The Valtari had cut most of the city's power, but these deep places stayed dark and hidden. He found the maintenance room Dobbin had told him about. Inside, 20 people sat in a circle on the concrete floor. Men and women of different ages, all with the same look in their eyes. The look of people who had lost everything but refused to give up. Dobbin stood when she saw him. Everyone, this is Kim Tae-ho. He will teach us what soldiers know about fighting. A young man raised his hand. He was thin and wore glasses that had been broken and fixed with tape. My name is Park Jin-soo. I used to fix machines before the aliens came. Can we really hurt them with just our hands? Tae-ho looked around the circle. These people wanted hope, but they also needed truth. The Valtari are bigger and stronger than us, he said. Their armor is thick and hard, but I have watched them work for 3 months. They have weak spots, and more important, they think we are helpless. That gives us an advantage. An older woman spoke up. She sat straight with her hands on her knees like a soldier. I am Choi Hye-jin. I taught Taekwondo for 30 years before the conquest. These aliens may be strong, but they fight like machines. Humans fight with heart. Dobbin nodded. That is why we are here, to learn how to use what they cannot take away from us. For the next 2 hours, they trained in the dark tunnel. Tae-ho showed them basic military fighting moves, how to strike with the edge of the hand, where to hit an enemy to cause the most pain, how to use an attacker's size against them. Ye-jin taught them kicks and strikes from Korean martial arts, old techniques that had been used for hundreds of years, ways to fight that were in their blood and bones. Jin-soo surprised everyone. The thin engineer was clumsy at first, but he learned fast. More important, he asked good questions about Valtari anatomy. Their shells are like insect shells, he said, studying a drawing Dobbin had made. Hard on the outside, but the joints need to be flexible. If we hit them in the right place with the right force, we might be able to crack the armor. Have you seen one up close? Taeho asked. Jinsu's face went dark. They killed my family in the first bombing, but before I ran, I saw their bodies. Afterward, the armor has weak points where it bends, at the neck, the wrists, behind the knees. Dobbin leaned forward. Can you draw those weak spots for us? Jinsu took out a pen and paper. His hands shook a little as he drew, but his lines were steady. He showed them exactly where the Valtari armor was thinnest, where a human hand or foot might break through. This is good, Hyejin said. In Taekwondo, we learn to focus all our power into one small point. A finger strike to the right place can be as deadly as a sword. They practiced until their hands were raw and their legs ached. In the dark tunnel, 20 humans learned to be dangerous again. As they prepared to leave, Dobbin spoke to the group. We will meet here every night. Tell no one. Trust no one outside this room. But know this, we are not alone. There are other groups like us in other parts of the city. How many? Asked Jinsu. Enough, Dobbin said. And more every day. The Valtari think they broke us when they took our weapons, but they only made us remember what we really are. Taeho walked home through empty streets. Above him, Valtari patrol ships moved like dark birds against the stars. Their lights swept the ground, looking for trouble. But they were looking for the wrong kind of trouble. The next morning at the labor camp, Taeho saw things differently. Every time a Valtari guard turned his back, every time they gathered humans into groups for work details, every time they stood close enough to touch, these were opportunities. During lunch break, he sat with a group of factory workers. They complained quietly about the food, the long hours, the way the aliens treated them like animals. It was not always like this, said an old man named Kim Min-ho. I remember when humans could fight back. Those days are gone, said another worker. They have all the weapons now. Taeho looked around to make sure no guards were listening. Then he spoke quietly. A weapon is just a tool. The person using it is what matters. We still have the same hands and feet and brains that won every war humans ever fought. The workers looked at him with new interest. Kim Min-ho leaned closer. What are you saying? I am saying that maybe those days are not as gone as we think. That night, 3 more people came to the tunnel meeting. Word was spreading, but slowly and carefully. Dobbin had taught them all about security. Never write anything down. Never use real names outside the group. Always have a story ready if someone asked where you had been. Hyejin brought something new to the training. She had been thinking about what Jinsu said about Valtari anatomy. Their shells are hard, but their insides are soft, she said. In the old days, Korean warriors fought against enemies in heavy armor. They learned to find the gaps, to strike where the armor could not protect. She showed them a new technique, a way to grab a Valtari's arm and twist it at the joint. If done right, the motion would crack the shell and break the bone underneath. It takes practice, she warned, and you only get one chance. Miss, and you die. They practiced on each other very carefully, learning the exact angle and force needed. Jinsu was getting better every night. His thin hands were surprisingly strong, and his engineer's mind understood exactly how joints and leverage worked. I want to try this on a real Valtari, he said. Soon, Dobbin promised. But first we need to be perfect. These techniques must work every time, or we all die. After training, Taeho walked with Dobbin toward the surface. She had become more than just the leader of their group. She was becoming a friend. How did you learn to organize like this? He asked. Special forces, she said. Before the aliens came, I was in a unit that trained for fighting behind enemy lines. Guerrilla warfare. Fighting when you are outnumbered and outgunned. Did they teach you how to fight giant insects from space? Dobbin laughed the first time he had heard her really laugh. No, but they taught me how to adapt. How to use whatever you have to hurt the enemy. Right now, what we have is anger and empty hands. Is that enough? It has to be. They reached the surface and went separate ways. Taeho walked home thinking about what Da-bin had said. Anger and empty hands. Maybe that was all any human had ever really had. But it had been enough to build cities and conquer continents and reach for the stars. The Valtari thought they had conquered Earth by taking away human weapons, but they had forgotten that humans had conquered their own world long before they invented guns, with nothing but their hands and their hearts and their refusal to give up. Soon the aliens would remember what that meant. The Valtari patrol walked through the ruins of the old market district like they owned the world. Because they did. 3 soldiers in their bug-like armor, plasma rifles ready, eyes glowing yellow in the morning light. Hee-jin watched them from a broken window 2 blocks away. She had been following this patrol for a week, learning their route, their timing, their habits. Today was the day her training would be tested. In the tunnel meetings, they had learned to fight as a team. The soul strike they called their main attack. 3 humans working together to bring down 1 Valtari. It required perfect timing and no mistakes. Da-bin crouched beside her. Behind them, Jinsu checked his watch. Everything had to happen exactly right or they would all die. Remember, Da-bin whispered, we are not trying to start a war today. We just want to prove it can be done. The patrol entered the narrow alley, right on schedule. This was the perfect place, walls on both sides, nowhere to run, and no cameras for the Valtari command to watch. Hee-jin dropped from the fire escape above, landing silently behind the last soldier. Her hands moved like lightning, striking the nerve cluster Jinsu had found in his studies of alien anatomy. The Valtari's legs stopped working and he fell forward. Da-bin came from the side, rolling under the second soldier's plasma rifle and driving her fist up into the joint where his chest armor met his arm piece. The shell cracked with a sound, like breaking ice. Jinsu, the engineer who had learned to fight in dark tunnels, grabbed the first soldier's weapon arm and twisted it with all his strength. The joint bent the wrong way, and the alien's scream sounded like metal tearing. 30 seconds later, 3 Valtari soldiers lay dead in an alley. No weapons fired, no explosions, just human hands and the knowledge of where to hit. It worked, Jinsu breathed, staring at his hands like he could not believe what they had done. Phase 1, Da-bin said, checking the bodies for anything useful. Now we need to disappear before their friends come looking. They split up and took different routes back to the safe areas. Hee-jin felt her heart pounding as she walked through the labor camp gates like nothing had happened. Around her, other humans went about their daily work, not knowing that 3 of their own had just proven the impossible. The Valtari found the bodies 2 hours later. The camp's loudspeakers crackled to life with the voice of Commander Thex 9. 3. Valtari soldiers are dead. The alien's voice ground out like stone on stone. No human weapons were found. No explosions detected. We demand answers. Taeho kept loading cargo boxes like he had been doing all morning. Around him, other workers exchanged quick glances. They knew something had changed, but they did not know what. That night, the tunnel meeting was twice as large as usual. Word was spreading through the human community in whispers and gestures. Something was possible, something the aliens had not expected. It worked better than we hoped, Hee-jin reported to the group. The techniques Jinsu developed are perfect. Strike the right spots with the right force and their armor cracks like an egg. A new voice spoke from the back of the group. What happens when they send more soldiers to find us? It was Kim Min-ho, the old factory worker. He had finally decided to join them, bringing 5 others with him. Then we teach them that finding us is not the same as catching us, Da-bin answered. This is our city. We know every street, every building, every tunnel. They are strangers here. Taeho stood up. Everyone needs to understand something. What we did today changes everything. The Valtari thought we were broken. Now they know. We can still bite. They will be more careful, more violent. Some of us will die. The tunnel was quiet for a long moment. Then Jinsu spoke. Some of us were already dead, he said. We just did not know it yet. At least now we can choose how we die. The old man Kim Min-ho nodded. My grandson asks me every night why the monsters came to our world. Now maybe I can tell him that his grandfather did something about it. They trained harder that night. More people meant they could practice the team attacks that would be needed for bigger targets. Groups of 4 or 5 humans learning to move. Like one weapon, Hyejin taught them about fighting in small spaces. The Valtari were tall and wide, which made them powerful in open areas. But in narrow alleys or inside buildings, their size became a weakness. Make them come to you, she said. Choose the ground. Force them to fight where they cannot use their advantages. Dabin worked with the new people on basic moves, how to punch without breaking your own hand, how to kick at the right angle to break armor, how to work together so that each attack made the next one easier. Jinsu had brought something new, sketches he had made of Valtari equipment, plasma rifles that were too big for human hands, but might be used in other ways, communication devices that could be turned into bombs, energy, shield generators that might be reprogrammed. We cannot use their weapons the way they do, he explained, but we can make them work for us, turn their own tools against them. 3 weeks later, the resistance had grown to over 200 people in 12 different groups across the city. Each group knew only 1 or 2 others, so if the Valtari caught some of them, the rest would survive. They had killed 15 more Valtari soldiers, always in small groups, always with no warning, always leaving no evidence except broken armor, and the growing fear that humans were not as helpless as they seemed. Commander Thex 9 was getting desperate. His reports to the Valtari Empire spoke of equipment failures and accidents. He could not admit that unarmed humans were killing his soldiers. But in his private moments, the alien commander was beginning to understand that Earth was different from other conquered worlds. Other species had stayed broken after giving up their weapons. Humans seemed to get more dangerous the more desperate they became. In the tunnels under Seoul, Taeho watched his people training and felt something he had not felt in months: pride. These were not soldiers or warriors in the old sense. They were teachers and factory workers and shopkeepers, but they were learning to be something new. What are we becoming? Dabin asked him one night after training. Taeho watched Hyejin teaching a group of teenagers how to strike at armor joints, watched Jinsu explaining alien technology to a group of old men, watched ordinary people learning to do extraordinary things. We are becoming what humans have always been when pushed too far, he said. Dangerous. The Valtari had outlawed guns and bombs and all the tools humans use to fight wars, but they had forgotten that humans did not need tools to be deadly. They had forgotten that the most dangerous weapon in the universe was a human being with nothing left to lose. Soon the aliens would learn what Earth's children could do when their world was taken from them. And when they learned, they would wish. They had never heard the name of this small blue planet. The maintenance tunnels under the Valtari Communication Center smelled like alien technology and fear. Jinsu crawled through the narrow space with 5 others, all dressed as repair workers. Their fake work orders had gotten them past the outer guards. Now came the hard part. Above them, the most important Valtari communication hub in Seoul processed orders from the Empire. If they could take it out, the alien forces in the city would be blind and confused for hours, long enough for the other resistance groups to strike their own targets. Operation Empty Hand was beginning. Jinsu checked his watch. In 10 minutes, teams across the city would attack 12 different Valtari installations at exactly the same time. No guns, no bombs, no weapons except human hands and the techniques they had learned in dark tunnels. Remember, he whispered to his team, the guards change shift at exactly 11:15. We have 3 minutes while they pass information to each other. 3 minutes to take control of the entire center. The woman beside him, a former teacher named Lee So-young, adjusted her grip on the modified wrench that was their only tool. What if there are more guards than we planned for? Then we adapt, Jinsu said, thinking of all the training sessions where Hyejin had made them practice fighting when everything went wrong. We are human. Adapting is what we do best. They reached the access panel that led into the main communication room. Jinsu had studied the building plans for weeks, memorizing every corridor and air vent. Through the metal grate, he could see 4 Valtari technicians working at large control panels. At exactly 11:15, the door opened and 2 new guards entered. The old guards began explaining the current status in their grinding alien language. This was the moment. Jinsu's team moved like ghosts, 6 humans flowing through the access panel and striking before the aliens knew they were there. So Young's wrench found the nerve cluster behind one guard's head armor. Jinsu himself jumped onto a technician's back and used the leverage technique. Taeho had taught him to snap the alien's neck. In 90 seconds, the communication center was theirs. The Valtari lay dead or unconscious, and Jinsu was already working at their control panels. "I need 5 minutes to reprogram their system," he said. "Watch the doors." Across the city, similar scenes were playing out. At the main supply depot, Daebin led 30 humans in an attack that turned the aliens' own equipment against them. Using crowbars and hammers, they collapsed support beams and buried half the Valtari guards under tons of their own supplies. The survivors fought back with plasma rifles, but the humans had learned to use the environment as a weapon. Daebin's team stayed in the shadows between storage containers, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the aliens could target them. "They fight like cowards," one Valtari soldier screamed into his communicator. But his words were answered only by static. The communication center was no longer under alien control. At the power station, Hyojin's group demonstrated what decades of martial arts training could do against alien technology. The Valtari energy shields were designed to stop plasma bolts and projectiles. They were not designed to stop a human hand moving at exactly the right speed and angle. Hyojin herself broke through 3 energy shields in a row, her strikes so precise they found the tiny gaps in the force field generators. Behind her, students who had learned Taekwondo in peaceful times now used those same moves to crack alien armor like opening nuts. The most dangerous attack was happening at the Valtari command post. Taeho led 50 fighters in an assault on the building where Commander Thex9 had his headquarters. This was not just about cutting communications or destroying supplies. This was about showing the alien commander that his personal safety was not guaranteed. The command post was the most heavily defended target. 20 Valtari guards with the best weapons and armor, energy barriers and automated defenses. Everything the alien technology could provide to keep the commander safe. But the humans did not attack the building directly. Instead, they came from below. Seoul's subway system connected to everything. Taeho's team used maintenance tunnels and old construction passages to get directly under the command post. Then they used controlled explosions, not bombs but collapsing support structures, to bring down the building's lower level. When the Valtari guards rushed downstairs to see what had happened, they found 50 humans waiting for them in the dark. The aliens had superior weapons and armor, but they were fighting on human ground now, in narrow corridors where their size was a disadvantage against an enemy that knew every corner and shadow. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, half of Taeho's fighters were dead or wounded. But every single Valtari guard was down, and Commander Thex9 was a prisoner. The alien commander stood nearly 3 meters tall even without his armor. His yellow eyes burned with rage as human hands tied him with alien rope. But there was something else in those eyes now, something the humans had not seen before. Fear. "You cannot hold me," Thex9 said in his grinding voice. "More soldiers will come. You have no weapons to stop them." Taeho looked at his bloody hands, then back at the alien commander. Around them, the command post was in ruins. Human bodies lay next to alien ones, but the humans had won. "You are right," Taeho said. "We have no weapons, but we have something else you never counted on." "What?" "We have nothing left to lose, and that makes us the most dangerous thing in the universe." Back at the communication center, Jinsu finished his work with the alien computers. The Valtari communication system was now broadcasting a signal to every occupied human settlement on Earth. A simple message in multiple languages. "Seoul fights, Seoul bleeds, Seoul stands, join us." The message would reach human resistance groups in other cities, other countries. It would tell them that the conquest was not complete, that humans could still fight back, but more important, it would reach the Valtari Empire itself. For the first time in their history of conquest, The aliens would have to explain to their leaders how a supposedly defeated species had captured their facilities and taken their commander prisoner. As dawn broke over Sol, the surviving resistance, fighters gathered in their tunnel hideouts to count the cost of Operation Empty Hand. 43 humans were dead, many more were wounded. But they had achieved something thought impossible. They had proven that Earth was not conquered, that humans without weapons could still fight, that the Valtari Empire had made a mistake when they thought taking away guns would take away human resistance. Dabin sat in the main tunnel, bandaging a cut on her arm and reading reports from the other teams. The cost had been high, but the results were beyond their best hopes. "What happens now?" asked one of the younger fighters. "The Valtari will send more soldiers. They will be angry." "Let them be angry," Dabin said. "Angry enemies make mistakes, and we will be ready for those mistakes." Hee-Jin limped in from her team's attack on the power station. Her right leg was burned from a plasma blast, but she was smiling. "The power grid is completely down in 3 districts," she reported. "It will take them days to repair the damage we did. And we learned something important." "What?" "Their armor can be broken. Their shields can be beaten. Their weapons can be taken and used against them. They are not invincible. They are just aliens who made the mistake of thinking humans would stay defeated." In a cell deep under the ruined command post, Commander Thex-9 sat in chains and tried to understand what had gone wrong. His reports had said the human resistance was growing, but he had not believed they could be truly dangerous without weapons. Now his own soldiers were dead, killed by human hands. His communication center was broadcasting human propaganda. His command post was a pile of rubble. For the first time since coming to Earth, the Valtari commander began to wonder if his species had made a terrible mistake. Not in conquering this planet, but in thinking the conquest was complete. The humans had outlawed weapons taken from them. But they had not surrendered. They had simply learned to fight in a different way, and that way was proving more dangerous than the Valtari had ever imagined. The message reached the Valtari Empire 3 days after Operation Empty Hand. For the first time in their 3-century history of conquest, one of their commanders had been captured by a supposedly defeated species. The response was swift and brutal. "Failure," the Emperor's voice echoed through the emergency communication that reached Earth. "You have allowed primitives to embarrass the Empire. This ends now." Commander Thex-9, still chained in the Resistance hideout, translated the message for his human captors. His yellow eyes showed something the humans had never seen from a Valtari before: genuine fear. "The Emperor is sending the Death Fleet," Thex-9 said. 5,000 soldiers with orders to kill every human on this planet. They will not try to enslave you anymore. They will simply wipe you out." Taeho looked at the alien commander with cold eyes. "When?" "1 week, maybe less." Dabin paced the small cell, her mind racing. 5,000 soldiers. Even if every human on Earth joined the resistance, we would be outnumbered 100 to 1. "The resistance has grown," Jinsu said from the doorway. Since Operation Empty Hand, he had been coordinating with human groups all over the world. The broadcast reached everywhere. There are active resistance cells in 20 countries now. Maybe 2 million people ready to fight. 2 million humans against 5,000 Valtari with unlimited weapons and support, Hee-Jin said quietly. Those are still terrible odds. But Taeho was thinking about something else. Why are they so scared? If they are so much stronger than us, why send 5,000 soldiers to kill civilians? Thex-9 was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, smaller somehow. Because other worlds are watching. We have conquered 43 planets in the last 3 centuries. Every species gave up when we took their weapons, but you did not give up. You learned to fight in ways we never expected. So if other conquered species see that humans can resist successfully, they might start to resist too. The Empire cannot allow that. It would mean the end of everything we have built. Dabin stopped pacing. You mean we are not just fighting for Earth? We are fighting for every world you have conquered. Yes, and that is why they will not just defeat you. They will destroy you so completely that no one will dare to follow your example. The week that followed was unlike anything in human history. Across the globe, ordinary people learned to fight with their hands. Factory workers and teachers, students and grandparents, all training in techniques that had been perfected in the tunnels under Seoul. The Korean resistance fighters became teachers, traveling to other cities to share what they had learned. Hyejin went to Tokyo to train Japanese martial artists. Jinsu flew to Berlin to show European engineers how to turn alien technology against itself. Dabin coordinated with resistance cells in New York and London and Mumbai, but Tai-ho stayed in Seoul. This was where it had started, and this was where it would end. On the day the Death Fleet arrived, the old Olympic Stadium had been converted into a fortress, not with walls and weapons, but with knowledge and determination. 10,000 humans had gathered there, representatives from resistance cells around the world. They came with nothing but their hands and their training, and their refusal to die quietly. The Valtari ships landed like a dark storm around the stadium. 5,000 alien warriors in the finest armor their technology could provide. Energy weapons that could melt steel. Personal shields that could stop any projectile. They had come to end human resistance once and for all. The new Valtari commander, Kek 7, stood at the front of his army and activated his loudspeakers. "Humans of Earth," his voice boomed across the stadium. "You have embarrassed the Empire long enough. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Continue to resist, and we will make them last for days." Tai-ho stepped forward from the human crowd. Around him, 10,000 people stood ready to fight and die with nothing but their hands. Old women who had learned to break alien joints, children who had practiced the soul strike until they could do it in their sleep, engineers and teachers and factory workers who had become humanity's last army. "We have a counteroffer," Tai-ho called back. "Leave our world and never return. Go back to your empire and tell them that Earth is not for sale." Kek 7's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "You face the finest warriors in the galaxy, and you have no weapons. What can your soft hands possibly do against our armor and energy shields?" Tai-ho looked back at his people, then forward at the alien army. "I guess we are about to find out." The battle began when the first line of Valtari soldiers activated their energy shields and advanced across the stadium field. They moved in, perfect formation, confident that their superior technology would make this a massacre. They were wrong. The humans did not charge forward like an army. Instead, they flowed like water, using every technique they had learned in the dark tunnels. They came from above, dropping from the stadium seats to land on alien backs. They came from the sides, rolling under plasma fire to strike at vulnerable joints. They came from below, using old drainage tunnels to appear exactly where the aliens did not expect. Hyejin led a group of martial artists in a coordinated attack on the alien left flank. Moving together like dancers, they broke through energy, shields with precise strikes and cracked armor with focused kicks. Each human knew exactly where to hit and how much force to use. Jinsu had turned the stadium's old electrical system into a trap. When alien feet touched certain sections of the field, power surges overloaded their shield generators. The aliens found their protective technology failing at the worst possible moments. Dabin coordinated the overall battle from the center of the field, using hand signals to direct human fighters where they were needed most. When the aliens tried to concentrate their forces, the humans scattered like smoke. When the aliens spread out to cover more ground, the humans came together like a closing fist. But the Valtari were not helpless. Their plasma weapons cut down human fighters in dozens. Their superior strength and armor protected them from all but the most perfect strikes. For every alien that fell, 3 humans died. The battle raged for hours. Bodies covered the stadium, field. Human and alien mixed together in the chaos of close combat. The air filled with smoke from plasma fire and the screams of the wounded and dying. As the sun began to set, both sides were exhausted. Half the Valtari army was dead or wounded, but so were most of the human fighters. The survivors faced each other across a field littered with the cost of their war. That was when Commander Kek 7 made his final mistake. Desperate to end the battle, he challenged Tai-ho to single combat. "Your people have fought bravely," the alien commander said, his armor cracked and his weapons almost empty. "But this ends now. You and me, human. Winner takes all. Taeho was bleeding from a dozen wounds and his right arm hung useless at his side. But he walked forward to meet the alien commander in the center of the field. Keck 7 stood 3 meters, tall in his battle armor. His forearms carried the finest weapons Valtari technology could provide. His shield generator hummed with enough power to stop a tank shell. Taeho had bloody hands and 40 years of experience teaching young humans how to fight. The duel lasted 15 minutes. Keck 7 used every advantage his technology provided, but Taeho used something the alien could not understand: the accumulated knowledge of every human who had ever learned to fight with nothing but their courage and their hands. When it ended, the Valtari commander lay broken on the stadium grass. His armor cracked open like an egg. Taeho stood over him, swaying but still alive. The surviving Valtari soldiers looked at their fallen commander, then at the humans who had somehow defeated their greatest warriors. For the first time in their species' history, they felt something they had never felt before: doubt. "This is not over," one alien soldier called out as they retreated to their ships. "The Empire will send more fleets, more soldiers." Taeho watched them go, then looked around at his surviving fighters. Maybe 1,000 humans were still alive, out of the 10,000 who had started the battle. "Let them send more fleets," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We will be ready, and next time we will teach them something new." As the Valtari ships lifted off and disappeared into the stars, the survivors began the long work of caring for the wounded and burying the dead. But they also began planning for what came next. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. And humanity had proven something important: that the most dangerous weapon in the universe was not technology or superior firepower. It was the refusal to surrender. 6 months after the Battle of Olympic Stadium, the morning sun shone on a very different Sol. The Valtari ships were gone, recalled by an empire that had learned a hard lesson about underestimating humanity, but the cost of freedom lay heavy on the survivors. Taeho walked slowly through the memorial garden where they had buried the 10,000 humans who died in the final battle. His right arm had healed, but it would never be quite the same. None of them would be quite the same. At the center of the garden stood a simple stone with words carved in Korean and 43 other languages, one for each world the Valtari Empire had conquered. "They took our weapons. We gave them our hands. They took our freedom. We gave them our courage. They took our lives. We gave them our example." Dobbin found him there, as she did most mornings. She had been elected as the first leader of the new Earth Defense Council, the organization that would prepare humanity for whatever came next. "The morning reports," she said, handing him a tablet computer. "Resistance movements on 12 Valtari worlds have declared independence. 3 more planets have asked for human military advisors to help train their people." Taeho read through the reports with amazement. On distant worlds he could barely pronounce, alien species were learning the techniques that humans had developed in dark tunnels under Sol. The Sol Strike was being taught to 8-armed creatures on Nexus Prime. Tunnel fighting tactics were helping the rock people of Titan 7 reclaim their cities. "The Valtari Empire is falling apart," Dobbin continued. "Their entire system was based on quick conquests and broken spirits. When people learned they could still fight back, everything changed." A group of children ran through the memorial garden, laughing and playing games that looked like the training exercises their parents had learned during the resistance. But these children were not preparing for war. They were just playing, the way children should. "What about the academy?" Taeho asked. "Construction starts next month," Dobbin said with pride. "The Empty Hand Academy will train teachers, not soldiers. People who can help other worlds learn to defend themselves without becoming conquerors themselves." The academy had been Hye-jin's idea. She had survived the final battle, though she walked with a permanent limp now. Her vision was simple: teach the galaxy's oppressed peoples how to fight for their freedom, but also teach them how to build something better when the fighting was done. "We do not want to become like the Valtari," she had said at the first planning meeting. "We want to show the universe that strength and wisdom can exist together." Jinsu approached them across the garden. The thin engineer had become something unexpected, a diplomat. His technical mind and gentle nature made him perfect for helping alien species adapt human fighting techniques to their own biology. The delegation from the Christek worlds just arrived, he reported. Their people are made of living stone, so our joint-breaking techniques will not work for them. But I think we can modify the leverage principles for their body structure. Tae-ho smiled. Remember when you were just trying to fix broken machines? I still fix broken things, Jin-Soo said. Now they are just bigger and more complicated. They walked together toward the new city center, where Seoul was being rebuilt. Not exactly as it had been, but as something new. The architects had designed buildings that could serve as defensive positions if needed, but which looked like places of learning and beauty in peacetime. The old labor camps had been torn down and replaced with hospitals and schools. The Valtari command centers had become community centers where people could learn new skills and share knowledge. The aliens had brought advanced technology to Earth, and now humans were learning to use it for healing instead of conquering. But the most important change was in the people themselves. Walking through the streets, Tae-ho saw shopkeepers who could break alien armor with their bare hands. He saw teachers who had learned to organize resistance cells. He saw children who understood that their hands were tools for building and creating, but also for protecting what they loved. They stopped at a small training school where Hyejin was teaching a mixed class of humans and aliens, refugees from Valtari worlds who had come to Earth to learn the techniques that had freed them. The students practiced together, humans learning from aliens, and aliens learning from humans. The hardest part is not the fighting, Hyejin was saying to her class. The hardest part is knowing when to fight and when to build, when to use your hands as weapons and when to use them as tools of creation. A young alien student, one of the few Valtari who had defected during the rebellion, raised one of his forearms. Teacher, my people conquered 43 worlds because we believed we were stronger, but humans defeated us with no weapons. How do we know when we are truly strong? Hyejin considered the question carefully. Strength is not about how much damage you can do. Real strength is about how much you can protect, how much you can build, how much you can help others become strong too. As evening approached, Tae-ho made his way to the old subway station where everything had begun. The tunnels were no longer secret hideouts for desperate fighters. They had been converted into a museum and training center where visitors could learn the history of human resistance. In the main chamber where 20 frightened people had first gathered to learn how to fight with their hands, school groups now came to understand their heritage. Not just the fighting, but everything that came after. The rebuilding, the reaching out to former enemies, the choice to use victory as a foundation for peace rather than revenge. Dabin found him there as the sun set over the city. Any regrets? She asked. Tae-ho thought about all the people who had died in the tunnels and streets and stadium. All the lives lost to prove that humans would not stay defeated. All the pain and fear and desperate courage that had brought them to this moment. Yes, he said finally. I regret that it took an alien invasion for us to remember what we were capable of. I regret that we needed to lose so much before we found our strength. But no regrets about fighting back? Never. They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell outside. In the distance, lights came on in the rebuilt city, human and alien working together to create something neither species could have built alone. The children ask me sometimes, Dabin said, why we do not build bigger weapons now that we know aliens exist, why we do not prepare to conquer other worlds the way the Valtari conquered us. What do you tell them? I tell them about an old Marine instructor who taught me that the most powerful weapon in the universe is not something you carry. It is something you are. Tae-ho looked at his hands in the dim light. These hands had killed alien soldiers and built resistance networks. They had destroyed enemy installations and healed wounded fighters. They had taken life and saved it, sometimes in the same day. The Valtari thought they defeated us when they took away our guns, he said. They never understood that guns were not what made us dangerous. What made us dangerous was our refusal to accept defeat. And now? Now we teach the galaxy that there is something more dangerous than a species that refuses to be conquered. a species that refuses to become conquerors. As they prepared to leave the old tunnel, Taeho took one last look around the chamber where human resistance had been born. On the wall, someone had written the words that had become humanity's message. To the universe, they outlawed our guns. They forgot about our hands. But hands that can fight can also build. Hands that can destroy can also heal. We choose what our hands will do. Outside, Seoul glittered with the lights of a city that had died and been reborn. Somewhere among those lights, human children played games while alien refugees learned new ways to live in peace. Former enemies worked together to build technologies that helped instead of harming. Warriors studied how to become teachers. The Valtari Empire was collapsing, as world after world chose freedom over submission. But from its ruins, something new was growing. Not another empire built on conquest and fear, but a community of worlds built on the simple idea that anyone could be strong if they refused to give up. And at the heart of it all was the lesson that 20 frightened humans had learned in a dark tunnel under a conquered city, that the most powerful weapon in the universe was not technology or superior firepower. It was the human refusal to stay defeated, and the human choice to use victory as a foundation for something better than war. The aliens had taken their weapons, but they had forgotten about human hands. Now the whole galaxy was learning what those hands could do when they chose to build instead of destroy. It was, Taeho thought as he walked home through the peaceful streets, a good lesson for everyone to learn.